Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of my Super Woden GP2 lab testing series, where I drive every car in Super Woden GP2 so you don't have to. Today we will focus on the H-class, which is the biggest class in the game, containing 61 vehicles, ranging from 101 to 200 horsepower. In case you missed it, I invite you to watch the introduction video for the series. It contains most of the information that you need to know about the project. So go check that out if you have any question. This video might reply to it. Also, there are a few clips that don't have audio. I'm sorry about that. I just messed up my OBS settings while doing the testing. There are a few clips that don't have audio in the next videos, but most of them are in this one. And unsurprisingly, the last place is the truck. It's actually the most expensive vehicle in the entire class, funnily enough. But yeah, this vehicle is very slow, the third slowest in the entire game, and by far the slowest of this class. Next, in 60th place, we have the Soup Annihilator MK1, which is a terrible car for what it is. It basically has absolutely no grip, and yeah, it's not gonna be very useful for you unless you want to make the game more challenging. Then in 59th place, the Soup Party that we already saw in the I-class testing, but it was stock. This time it achieves a 120,697. It is, yeah, at the bottom of the class as expected. That's the cheapest car of the entire class as well. But you're not gonna use it for anything, realistically. Up next we have in 58th place the DeCastro 421, which is a bit heavy and lacks of grip, which makes it place so badly. It's the last car to not break the 120 barrier in here. Next we have the Cinder Bunny GTI with a 119.1, immediately jump by 1 second. First car below 120. This car lacks of upgrade. What you're seeing right now is the car being driven at stock because it has absolutely no useful upgrade, unfortunately. After that we jump again by almost a second with the Soup Radzer getting a 118,265. Still a meh car just like the previous ones. It's not very useful for anything, and this class is gonna contain a lot of vehicles like that are not gonna be interesting at all. But it seems like we have a little group here because the DeCastro Zabibi 1 XSI has a 118,242, placing only 200 ahead of the Radzer. So both cars are actually competitive with each other. So if you want to make races with competitive cars that are very slow, that could be an idea to put those two cars together. And you could also do the same with the 54th place, the Soup Annihilator MK2, which got a 118,139. So really similar to the other two in terms of pace, but very different in terms of handling, as this car is all on acceleration and top speed, but has absolutely no grip compared to the other two. And oh wow, this is very close. 118,122 is the time that the Aliastar got, which means that the Zabibi 1, Annihilator MK2, Radzer and Star are all four within around a tenth from each other, so you could very well make some races between the four and have a very competitive race. Next we got the Enerning 444T, which got a 117,458, so a lot faster than the previous car that we've seen before. This car has decent grip, but it lacks the straight line speed and it's a bit stiff to drive. Then we got the Nanworth Grafton that we've seen earlier in the I-class testing as well. This time it's fully upgraded. This is the only car in the game that we can apply every single upgrade to. It has 18 different upgrades. And when all applied, this car gets a 117,411. A decent pick for events like the Classic Coupe Showdown, but there are better picks out there. Like for example, the Milan Sinner Mil R, which got a 117,329, and this one is actually the best pick that you can use for the Classic Coupe Showdown. It has some pretty decent grip, but it lacks a bit of straight line speed. Then we have the Nanworth Bravery, which got a 117,136. This one can also be used for the Classic Coupe Showdown, however, it uses the engine upgrade here that you can't use for the Classic Coupe Showdown. Still a decent pick for the Classic Coupe Showdown, and you still have to use it for the Bravery Showdown anyway. Next, in 48th place, we have the Cinder Wagner, which is actually painfully slow considering it's based on the Audi A4. This car is only 150 horsepower and it doesn't have an engine upgrade. With a 117,079 it's not gonna be competitive anywhere. Next, with a 117.907, the Cinder Anil Turbo is a decent car. It's a bit drifty, so it's not the most grippy car that you'll get. You will drift a bit with it, it's pretty fun to drive. And it's one of the better picks for the 50s-70s small cars event. But the Raven Kuroko has to be the fastest for this. It's only 400 quicker, but it's quicker. It is also a decent pick for the classic coupe showdown, but with the engine upgrade it's also the absolute best in the 50s to 70s small car event. Next, in 45th place, we have the Milan Tattoo, which is a bit hard to drive without handling upgrades, but it has a decent straight line speed. It has a 1:16.255, which is not really impressive and is not gonna make it very useful anywhere. Next, we have the Milan vs GTI, which is a decent car. It's really good at keeping a lot of speed out of the sharp corners, and also it's pretty cheap, so why not? Next, we have the Alia Mancini, which is not much more expensive, and it's half a second quicker than the previous car. It lacks a bit of grip, but has an okay straight line speed. Next, in 42nd, the Raven Unua is just basically a quicker version of the Wagner. It's basically the same car, but better. Next, we have our first DLC cars of the entire testing, the Raven Dachshund with a 115.664. This is the slowest DLC car, and this car mainly lacks off grip. The upgrades will help it to get some decent grip, but it's still pretty bad even with upgrades. Next, in 40th place, we have the Cinder Fermac, which got a 115.608, which is a bit like the Unua, but slightly more comfortable to drive. It turns a bit better, I would say, but it's not much faster. Next, we have the Nanwolf Rigging Hoe, which has a pretty good straight line speed, but really lacks of grip. After that, we have the Enerning Vania, which is very grippy, but lacks of straight line speed, unfortunately. Then in 37th place we have the Alia Valentini. We got the Mancini earlier, but the Valentini is just a slightly quicker version of the Mancini. It gets a 115.265, which is half a second faster than the Mancini, and you will see the same pattern when we are gonna see the rally versions of those. Next, in 36th place, we have the Milan Baxter GTI 16, which looks like a big, heavy sedan, but actually it's surprisingly responsive. It drives like a much lighter car. With a 115.085, it's an average pick, I would say. Next, we have the Milan Rare Hero, which got a 114.742 with all the upgrades. It's also pretty good for 50s to 70s small cars and classic coupe showdown, but it doesn't have all these engine upgrades. It lacks a bit of grip, that's the main issue, I would say. Next, in 34th place, we have the Cinder Audi, which got a 114.675, and this car is pretty disappointing. You'd expect a very grippy car out of this Audi Quattro based car, but actually it's very bad in terms of grip, and from an almost 200 horsepower car you'll get pretty disappointed by its performance. Speaking of cars that lack grip, the Alia Dancer is also one of those. With 114.628, it suffers from the same issues as the Audi, however this one doesn't have 190 something horsepower, so you can excuse that. And next, yet another car that lacks of grip, the Sup Annihilator MK3. Like every other Annihilator, this car has all on top speed and nothing on grip. It gets a 114.601, which makes it on the same pace as the two previous cars, and it also drives exactly like them. Next, in 31st place, we have yet another car with no grip, the Matsui. The Raven Matsui gets the 114.358. It's unfortunately not very grippy. It's just yet another average car that lacks grip. Nothing special. Next we have the Milan Kuro VTX, which got a 114.039 and it basically has the same issues as the previous car. So this one is not a great pick. Next with the Cinder Shock we have another no grip average car. It's starting to be a lot of them and there are still a lot of them after that. That's insane. There is like a big chunk of no grip average cars in here. But yeah, with a 113.732 this car is just as average as it can be. And the Cinder Colibri that comes just ahead of it with a 113.690 is basically the same. After that, in 27th place, we've got the Raven Alien with a 113.272. It has a good straight line speed, but unfortunately again it has no grip. And now in 26th place, finally breaking that curse, the Alia Mazziotti Turbo, which is actually a car that has good grip. This is the last car in this video that is under 10k credits, so it has a pretty good quality price ratio with a 113.213. It has quite a few engine upgrades, so yeah, that's a decent car. Next in 25th place we have the Cinder 2024, which was the DLC car for the new year. That's the third DLC car of this video. The regular version of it is not great, it's like average with a 113.206. It's very light and responsive, but yeah, it's very average. Next we have a very surprising car actually, so that car only costs 10k and it's around 100 horsepower stock and upgraded it's 130 horsepower and it got a 113.070. The Milan Sauvageon is actually really good for the amount of horsepower that it has. I was very surprised to see it this fast. Next in 23rd we have the Shukofuku, which has a 112.794. It's similar to the Alien, but it is slightly more grippy. Next in 22nd place we've got the Aria Lu Super 6, which got a 112.545, and I would say this car, despite lacking engine power and grip, it has absolutely no upgrades for those two characteristics, and that's a shame because that could have been a great car otherwise. Next in 21st, the last DLC car that has been added recently, the Milan Bourget, at least the production version of it, with a 112.377. It's pretty grippy, it's like the Shock but with more grip. Next in 20th place, top 20, we have the Milan Claude with a 112.375, only 2 milliseconds faster than the Bourget. This car is pretty good, it's quite grippy, I'd say it's good. It's good for what it is. Next in 19th place we have the Cinder Schöne with a 112.347. This car feels surprisingly heavy, but it's actually pretty decent when you apply all the upgrades. Next in 18th place we have the Milan Piero GTI, which is very light and has a pretty decent top speed, especially for the amount of horsepower that it has. With a 112.298, this is a pretty decent peak. Next, this is another close one. In 17th place the Raven Moon is only 3 milliseconds quicker than the Piero GTI. It's a pretty good car in terms of straight line speed, but it lacks off grip a lot. It feels very heavy as well, especially without upgrades. After that, in 16th place we have the Alia Da Vinci, which has a 111.899. It's a pretty decent car, especially for a production car. If you're looking for a non-race car, this is one of the best. Next, in 15th place we have our first rally car with the Milan Goldelius Rally, which only has a 110.987, which makes it the slowest rally car in the game. Next in 14th place we have the Raven Oran 6, which is the second fastest production car in the class. The 2 tires upgrade that it has help a little bit. It has a 110.684 and it is really a very good car, very grippy and surprisingly fast. But even more surprisingly fast, in 13th place, the Milan M130 is actually the absolute fastest production car in the H-class. With a 1 minute 10 seconds 517 milliseconds, it is very grippy, it has a good acceleration and top speed, and it is actually purchasable at the start because it's only 14.6k. Next in 12th place we have the Raven CV4R, which is not very useful, but it's still worth mentioning that it got a 1 minute 10 215 milliseconds. But now it's time for the serious things, the rally cars, the Acro rally car. The Milan de Sauvageon Rally is the second slowest rally car, is a 108.777. This car is just not powerful enough to compete with the top. And in 10th place, the De Castro 271 Rally that you get from the Classic Coupe Showdown is not much better, 108.583. This is still pretty far from the top of the class. Next in 9th place we got the Nanwolf Minion Rally, which has a 17253. This car is slightly better than the 271, it feels very light but it lacks of power. A car that doesn't lack of power though is the Decastro VB1 Rally, which has a 106.134. It has the power but it lacks the grip and the lightness of the other rally cars. Maybe some tires and suspension upgrade could have been useful for it. Next in 7th place, the Milan Sol Strada Rally, which is actually one of the fastest cars without upgrade, the second fastest rally car without upgrade in this class. But the issue is that it doesn't have any upgrade. So with upgrade, which means nothing on this one, it's actually 7th, unfortunately. Next in 6th place we have the Raven Dachshund Rally, which despite having 3 tire upgrades, still lacks a bit of grip. It's still decent overall though. Then jumping into the top 5 with a 104.840, we have the Alia Mancini Rally, which is fairly quick. It just lacks a bit of grip compared to the next car, which is gonna be in 4th place, the Alia Valentini, which is basically the same car but slightly more grip and top speed. And it has a 104.475. Both cars have the same upgrades, they have almost the same price as well. I think the Mancini is actually more expensive, so you get scammed here by the Mancini. It's more expensive and slower. So yeah, prefer the Valentini over the Mancini. Next, in 3rd place, we have the Alia Cardellino, the OG fastest rally car. It has been the fastest rally car for quite a bit until the DLC cars came in. This is a pretty good car, you gain it from the Eisenhower trophy. It's a really good car overall. It's very light, it's very grippy, it's very fun to drive. I really recommend it. After that, in 2nd place, we have the Cinder 2024 Rally, which is a very good car overall in terms of racing. I think in terms of rally, the Cardellino is slightly better, but here on a racetrack, the 2024 is 4 milliseconds faster. On smaller tracks, the Cardellino might add the advantage as well, but ultimately, in any circumstance, the Alia Dancer is on top no matter what. In rally, racetracks, it's absolutely demolishing the entire class by being over a second quicker than the 2nd place. And even without upgrade, this car is still 3rd stock, but then it has 3 tire upgrades that make it way better. This really is the best car by a mile in the class. So yeah, I really recommend this one. 21.4k, it's pretty expensive, but it's worth it. So that's it, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This one was a bit more useful than the others because it contained more information about stuff that we tend to use more often. Don't miss the next episode, which is about the G-class, which is gonna be also very interesting. But anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also check out my Twitch channel where I stream various racing games content. And what else could I say? Take care and see you in the next episode.